Joy on Demand. Eckhart Tolle from A New Earth. The joy of being, which is only true happiness, cannot come to you through any form, possession, achievement, person, or event, through anything that happens. That joy cannot come to you ever. It emanates from the formless dimension within you, from consciousness itself, and thus is one with who you are. Tolle's being is referring to our higher self. It is a shame that joy has been a rare occurrence, but when joy comes, it is glorious. Wouldn't it be great if we could create joy on demand in a gentle and loving way? Basically, almost any time. I think this is impossible. My brother, who's quite spiritual, remarked about this possibility. Good luck. Let's learn some tools for bringing up joy on demand, however crazy that may sound. Inspired by Chade-Meng Tan's book, Joy on Demand. Tan of Google fame. Even though Tan was so happy most of the time while he worked at Google, in actuality, he had been living a miserable life while growing up until he discovered meditation. Joy came to him through his practice and transformed him into a very happy person. I was so inspired by his breakthrough book that I made use of its guidance to tailor this mindfulness series about joy. Overview. Let's pause to review how far we've come before we take a look at what will follow. We have cultivated love through our loving kindness meditation, peace of mind through breath awareness, and compassion through exercises on that theme. Now we're covering joy. These qualities all build sublime and wonderful states, which can be nurtured throughout our journey. A good image to describe our journey is that of an upward spiral, which is continuously climbing as we cultivate each quality of the higher self. Joy from the inside out. As previously discussed, joy is one of the 5 key spiritual characteristics of the higher self. Joy is actually inherent to our innate state of being. How cool is that? So like love and compassion, which are also characteristics of the higher self, joy emanates from inside of you when you're deeply present. In our meditation, we may experience abundance and generosity, or in our most loving state, we may be open to the moment with all of its possibilities. In such expansive states, it is likely that we will feel joy spilling out toward others. Interestingly, joy is tied to our involvement with others through love and compassion. Joy is experienced when we feel connected to a greater whole beyond ourselves. When we reach out to others in a compassionate way, we experience more of who we truly are. In turn, the other components of our higher self come to fruition, like buds opening into blossoms. This is consistent with Dr. Fredrickson's broad and build theory. A meditation to generate joy. In our mindfulness meditations, breathing exercises can lead into states of joy. Here is a meditation practice along these lines. Meditation. Take those 3 gentle breaths while breathing relaxation throughout your body. Now, wish someone you know to be happier. If you feel a little tingling in your body arising, that is joy. Bring your full attention to that joy. Offer up your beautiful smile to keep the joy alive if you'd like to. Joy, our natural state. Joy is the state that we experience when we open ourselves to the whole play of existence. Joy is a wonderful state of our higher self. Remember that joy, like other natural states, is not an emotion. The constant states of our higher self may be confused with emotions which come and go in response to stimuli. However, our natural states are, in fact, ever present. We only periodically experience their presence because our awareness is mainly dominated by our fear-based ego mind. It is only when the ego mind is overcome by an event that momentarily cracks open that veil that we get to experience our higher self. Then it quickly closes back up because our ego mind wants to maintain our full attention all of the time. Our inner work brings our core states into awareness. These have mainly been kept in the dark for much of our lives. The neural pathway receivers associated with our higher self have been forgotten and lie dormant. Like a plant that's kept in a closet for a long time, our higher self may seem to have wilted and dried up. Through meditation, we rewater the plant and recircuit the beneficial nerve pathways. Through the light of awareness, these qualities are replenished and energized. Then joy can become a normal part of our lives as we cultivate it by easing into joy. Joy on demand is about tapping into the wellspring of joy that resides within us. This experience of joy is without sensual or ego stimulation. This is stimulus-free joy. Our meditation has 3 points of focus. Number 1, easing into joy. The first precondition for joy is a state of ease or peace. Furthermore, you may become joyful that you're in a state of ease. Ease and joy reinforce each other. Peace also reinforces joy. Number 2, inclining towards joy. Here we notice and give our full attention to joy. We may do so during a calming breath or within everyday experiences. We become familiar with joy, as if joy were a close family member on whom we can count. The more the mind becomes familiar with joy, the more it perceives joy and inclines towards joy. In doing so, we effortlessly create the conditions conducive to joy. Similarly, we familiarize the mind with joy by welcoming, staying open, spending time, paying careful attention, and getting to know joy. Number 3, uplifting the mind. Here, we learn to uplift the mind by wholesome joy, especially joy arising from loving kindness and compassion. The wholesomeness of such joy benefits our mental health in the same way that wholesome food benefits physical health. Such joy also leads the mind into a stable, collected state. The mind doesn't have to fight with contrary tendencies like regret or envy. In turn, the stable, collected mind is conducive to wholesome joy. A virtuous cycle is established. Good vibrations. Ever since I've been practicing joy on demand throughout my day, I've had trouble figuring out how to describe my feelings of gentle joy. Then all of a sudden, a song by the Beach Boys, released in 1966, came to mind. Good Vibrations. That was it. I was able to realize that my feelings of joy gently cause a vibration sensation in my body. Here are the lyrics. Good Vibrations by the Beach Boys. I love the colorful clothes she wears, and the way the sunlight plays upon her hair. I hear the sound of a gentle word on the wind that lifts her perfume through the air. I'm picking up good vibrations. She's giving me excitations. I'm picking up good vibrations. Good vibrations. She's giving me excitations. Good, 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 good vibrations. Close my eyes. She's somehow closer now. Softly smile. I know she must be kind when I look in her eyes. She goes with me to a blossom world. Ah, ah, my, what elation. I don't know where, but she sends me there. Oh, my, what a sensation. Oh, my, what elation. Got to keep those loving, good vibrations happening with her. Na, 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 na. Hopefully, this song will get you to feel good vibrations if you're old enough to remember this sound. It was a giant hit. Meditation. I invite you again to take 3 gentle deep breaths as you breathe relaxation throughout your body. Now, wish another person you know to be happier. If you feel a little tingling in your body arising, that is joy, good vibrations. Bring your full attention to that joy. Offer up your beautiful smile to keep the joy alive, if you'd like to. And now, take 3 gentle, deep breaths. A quote from Buddha. We are shaped by our thoughts. We become what we think. When the mind is pure, joy follows like a shadow that never leaves. We have our work cut out for us. However, joy is available to us at almost any time and can be just a few breaths away. Quote from Chade Meng Tan. The more you incline your mind toward joy in real life, the more joyful and productive your meditations will tend to be. The more you practice mindfulness, the more likely you'll be able to downregulate habituation on the strength of your mindfulness and enjoy the pleasures of the day anew. Types of joy. Let us clearly define joy and its related sources. There are a few types of joy. The first type relates to momentary emotions such as gladness. These are emotions that are generated when we discover something special, new or novel, or when we can make something new happen. These emotions come and go, as do all emotional responses. The second kind of joy is rapture, an elevation of our state of mind, sometimes referred to as energetic joy. The third type, gentle joy, is a non-energetic joy, sometimes equated with happiness, bliss, or a gentle well-being. It is the type of joy that leaves you contented. Rapture and gentle joy are not true emotions, but they are drawn or sourced from the higher self. They present themselves whenever we access our higher self. When we're fully present and fully focused, we experience joy, especially when we attend to it. Through spiritual practice, we learn to awaken to our true nature. An illustration of the first type of joy, a sort of gladness, happened one morning as I was sitting down with a wonderful plate of 2 eggs over easy, with avocado slices on top. Just as I was finishing my breakfast, I was overcome with a great sense of joy. This gladness caught me by surprise. Another type of joy, the non-energetic kind, arose as I put my full attention onto my feelings. I was very present as I took a full deep breath. Then I breathed again, which brought relaxation to my whole body. In an act of compassion, I wished that my oldest daughter would be happier. This wish generated more joy, and the joy persisted. I put on a big smile, which I could feel in the muscles around my eyes, so that my joy would continue. Finally, as my attention faded, the joy faded as well. Thus, two types of joy were combined within this single joyous event at breakfast. Joy comes from within. An illustration. Here is a well-known story about a man who was one night crawling around on his hands and knees to look for something underneath a lamppost. When his friends saw him, they asked him what he was looking for, and he told them that he had lost the key to his house. They all got down to help him look, without any success. Finally, one of them asked him where exactly he had lost the key, and he replied, "In the house." "Then why are you looking underneath the lamppost?" The man replied, "Because there's more light here." We're not very different from this man. We're doing the same thing all of the time, always seeking fulfillment in sense pleasures, because we are taught and marketed to that is the obvious place to look, believing it to be the place where happiness is to be found. But is it? We are learning that joy can be found from within, and from just the wonders that each day brings, at almost every moment, if we're only aware and attend to them. Joy on demand and the happiness set point. Meditation is equivalent to mental calisthenics. The joy on demand meditations are like joy calisthenics. We can train ourselves to become joyful and to move our happiness set point from a negative or a neutral setting to a positive one. The happiness set point is our default setting for our sense of happiness and well-being. The default represents a sort of fixed average level of happiness or unhappiness around which our day-to-day happiness varies. Our natural temperament is generally stable, while slowly moving moods and momentary changes are experienced as emotions and thoughts. This happiness set point is so powerful that people return to it after certain surprising and positive gains once the initial euphoria has died down, such as winning the lottery. With regard to major negative events, the set point is similarly reliable. People with serious spinal cord injuries return to their prior happiness set point after adjusting to the shock of their new and debilitating physical handicaps. The adjustment may take some months, but eventually the initial set point returns. It is generally true that happiness set points establish a person's quality of life. The constancy is maintained because most people are constrained and imprisoned by their conditioned responses that do not change. They usually are influenced by childhood traumas and family patterns of behavior. However, we are experiencing and learning that meditation has the power to change those conditioned responses and thus change our happiness set points. Jade Meng Tan offers living proof that meditation can cause a significant upgrade to one's happiness set point. In my own case, I experienced those benefits. I always thought I was a very happy person until I started to meditate on a regular basis. I realized, based on my happiness set point, that I was actually not as happy as I thought I was. There was a background mood of fear and self-doubt that pervaded my consciousness and kept bringing me down. How was it that I was unaware? The basic moods within which we live our lives are again like the water in which a fish swims. Does a fish know it is swimming in water? No, because water is all that it knows. The fish has no point of comparison. The happiness set point indicates the level and quality of the water in which we swim. It is the same with our happiness set points, which establish the constant basis for our lives. It is an integral part of who we think we are. It is part of our identity. Through meditation and self-awareness, I learned to recognize my happiness set point and to monitor it. My set point started moving in a more favorable direction, significantly, as I maintained a more positive state of being. Through my practice of this joy series of meditations, I expect to shift my set point to an even more favorable level. The practice of inclining towards joy which we discussed earlier, can be beneficial in creating new emotional habits. Ultimately, these habits can also affect our happiness set point. We notice the inclinations towards joy, and they increase when we give them our full attention. The following text is from Tan's book, Joy on Demand. A beautiful description of our mental inclination is found in some ancient texts. Such inclinations are compared to mountain slopes. When the ground is sloped in a certain way, water flows effortlessly according to the direction of inclination. Similarly, when the mind is inclined in a certain way, thoughts and emotions happen effortlessly according to the nature of their inclination. If the mind is inclined towards joy, for example, then joyful thoughts and feelings tend to occur effortlessly. This simple but critical important insight leads to an equally important practical implication. The skillful way to train the mind is not to exert forceful control over the mind itself, but rather to change its inclination so that thoughts and emotions occur effortlessly in the direction that one intends. The inclination Tan is referring to is supported by a meditation practice. It cannot be achieved through wrestling with your thoughts or trying hard to think the right thoughts. Thoughts just arise that you cannot control. The change in your happiness set point will have a huge impact on the thoughts that do arise. The happiness set point also involves our own capacity to hold and transmute difficult experiences. As we learn to hold our struggles and the struggles of others within a place of joy and well-being, we develop a strong foundation for our own happiness set point. This skill generally prevents us from falling down into the depths of negativity. And if we do find ourselves spiraling downwards, we can come back up more quickly. Creating our reality. That we can be co-creators of our own reality is very hard to fathom. We so often blame outside factors for the quality of our lives, our parents, siblings, bosses, the times we live in, the government we're stuck with, and many other things. To blame is part of our conditioned response to our life situation. When we let our conditioned responses continue to rule our lives, we prevent ourselves from becoming free to make our own choices. We remain imprisoned and powerless. In such an unfree condition, we hardly feel like creators of our destiny. Instead, it can seem that we are confined by a straitjacket. We are then ready to scream out in pain and frustration when things do not go our way. Inclining our minds to joy. It is hard to fathom that our higher self is basically joyful, and the joy stems from being alive and conscious. It then follows that virtually any event can generate joy. Once we become fully conscious of the possibilities contained within each moment, even in the most trying situations we find ourselves, we can become fully present by doing our breathing exercises, inclining our minds to joy, and then letting our joyful selves be present. Just as a mountain slope guides a river effortlessly downstream, so joy may carry us toward better choices and ultimately to a more positive reality. This process provides an example of how we have the power to manage our own reality. We learn how to be conscious of our freedom, make choices, and finally, we do it. And we can especially incline toward joy right now. Meditation. I now invite you to take 3 gentle breaths as you breathe relaxation throughout your body. Now, wish someone you have some major issues with to be happy. If you feel a little tingling in your body arising, that is joy. Bring your full attention to that joy. Offer up your beautiful smile to keep the joy alive if you'd like to. Great. Thank you. Joy and suffering. We turn now to the second part of our Joy on Demand meditation series. Here we deal with some seemingly contradictory factors. We will discover that joy is not simply a fleeting mood of gladness, jubilation, or euphoria, but it can be a force for healing and well-being in helping people who are in pain and suffering, whether their afflictions be temporary or chronic and intense. It can be nice to feel great and say, "I feel great." But a deep sense of joy runs deeper. Joy lifts you and others when you're feeling down and out. In the joy meditations, the meditator is asked to be attentive to a joyful and uplifting force of well-being, even while experiencing the pain of someone close to you. It is important to be willing to experience joy in the midst of emotional pain and to allow that joy to surface whenever and wherever it likes. Additionally, we cultivate the willingness to experience the emotional pain of others. This ability is a key tool for helping make use of joy to temper and to heal that pain. Underlying war is peace. Underlying hatred is love. Underlying coldness is compassion. And underlying deep suffering is joy. These contrary attributes can be embraced by our higher self. In this way, joy is not merely a fleeting experience of exhilaration, but instead a key and vibrant component of our true nature, as well as another portal to our higher self. This joy is ready to emerge when we are suffering so that we may heal. Joy to alleviate grief. Over a recent conversation with a friend, I explained that joy on demand can involve holding grief within a state of joy. My friend looked at me as if I had two heads. In our core nature, we are joyful beings. And even when we're in a state of grief, our inner joy is never extinguished. Joy can be a curative when we're grieving. We will soon dive more deeply into this dynamic. The Dalai Lama tells this story of a certain Tibetan monk who had spent more than 18 years in a Chinese prison labor camp. This monk told me that on a few occasions he really faced some danger. So I asked him, "What danger? What kind of danger?" Thinking he would tell me of Chinese torture in prison. He replied, "Many times I was in danger of losing my compassion for the Chinese." Just as this monk made use of his innate compassion to overcome his tendency to hate his jailers and to deal with his pain, so we can make use of our innate joy to alleviate our own grieving, no matter how strong our grief may be. We may draw upon our own inner joy to help us to heal. The stories we tell ourselves. The stories we tell ourselves shape the way we live our lives. If this is true, then we would surely tell ourselves a better story if we had the choice. Do we have the power, in fact, to choose a better life storyline? Of course, the answer is yes. The first step in doing so is to become aware of our conditioned existence. Through our joy exercises, we then create joy where it had not previously existed within our consciousness. We unlock the joy part of ourselves through self-compassion. Our newly found ability to make choices provides a wonderful way, step by step, to create a more joyful existence. We then make use of meditative tools, guided meditations, to become authors of a new story to choose a renewed reality. Joy, the treasure within. Tolle tells the following story.
A beggar had been sitting by the side of a road for over 30 years. One day a stranger walked by. "Spare some change?" mumbled the beggar, mechanically holding out his old baseball cap. "I have nothing to give you," said the stranger. Then he asked, "What's that you're sitting on?" "Nothing," replied the beggar. "Just an old box. I've been sitting on it for as long as I can remember." "Ever looked inside?" asked the stranger. "No," said the beggar. "What's the point? There's nothing in there." "Have a look inside," insisted the stranger. The beggar managed to pry open the lid. With astonishment, disbelief, and elation, he saw the box was filled with gold. This parable describes well the dilemma and struggles we find ourselves in at every moment, especially how much joy is available to us at any time. Our box is filled with gold. We are sitting on this box all of the time. The box of gold represents our higher self. But unfortunately, our beggar mentality is driven by our faulty ego mind's sense of self. The ego mind keeps us searching for physical gifts with the illusory claim that by satisfying our earthly needs, we will become happy. However, we will find our real treasure only by looking inside the box and doing our inner work, where we can discover our higher self. Remember that the ego mind does not want us to look inside ourselves because it will be found out. So when it starts to squawk and complain about doing inner work, just ignore it. Acres of diamonds. Another fascinating story demonstrates how the greatest treasure exists right inside us and how we can continually believe that our search for happiness is somewhere out there, outside of ourselves, in physical objects. Over a century ago, Russell Conwell became famous for his traveling lecture entitled Acres of Diamonds. He gave this talk over 6,000 times, making him one of the most original and well-known motivational speakers. There was once a wealthy man named Ali Hafed, who lived not far from the river Indus in Iraq. He was contented because he was wealthy, and wealthy because he was contented. One day a priest visited Al-Hafed and told him all about diamonds and how much they were worth. He went to his bed that night a poor man. He had not lost anything, but he was poor because he was discontented, and discontented because he feared he was poor. Ali Hafed sold his farm, left his family, and traveled to Palestine and then to Europe, searching for diamonds. He did not find them. His health and wealth failed him. Dejected, he cast himself into the sea. One day, the man who had purchased Ali Hafed's farm found a curious sparkling stone in a stream that cut through his land. It was a diamond. Digging produced more diamonds, acres of diamonds, in fact. This, according to the parable, was the discovery of the famed diamonds of Golconda. By the end of the 19th century, the Golconda market was the primary source of the finest and largest diamonds in the world. In Acres of Diamonds, Ali Hafed was a relatively wealthy person, and when he heard about how incredibly rich he could become if he owned a diamond mine, he began to feel relatively poor, financially and spiritually, because he wasn't as rich as an owner of a diamond mine. His failure to find additional riches drove him to suicide. A true mindset of abundance is one without envy or craving for more. At the same time, and perhaps due to his own state of craving, Ali Hafed failed to discover the diamond mine on his own farm. He failed to discover the gold coins in the box he was sitting on all day long. He also failed to discover the joy that his life could offer him if he only looked inside. The kitchen faucet. I experienced my own craving for more recently when I installed a new kitchen faucet by myself. At first, I took great pride and enjoyment in how nice it looked. It was sleek and modern, and it could shoot out a nice strong spray. Then one day I was visiting a friend, and when I went into his kitchen to wash some fruit, I noticed that his faucet began spraying as soon as it was turned on. I then compared it to mine at home, which required me first to lift the handle and then to press a button under its neck to turn on the spray.
All of a sudden,
I was not experiencing any joy in my new faucet. It seemed inferior, like it was not as good as my friend's. The faucet still looked modern and gave me a strong spray, and I installed it myself. All the other conditions were the same, but now the joy was gone. A new factor had entered in, a craving for more, combined with a mindset of comparison and competition. Research shows that we are hardwired to notice negatives in this way, once our expectations are aroused, to make comparisons with something better. Yet, luckily, we have spiritual tools
to counteract this unfortunate response.
So I set out to rewire my brain through a combination of breathing, gratitude exercises, and connecting with
My awareness of joy.
Every time I used my faucet, I would breathe in a sense of gratitude,
Towards my new faucet.
breathe out my negative feelings, and feel the sense of joy. It worked. I am now back to fully enjoying my new faucet again. Meditation. I now invite you to take 3 gentle deep breaths while breathing relaxation throughout your body. Think of one thing you're grateful for and breathe into that thought. Now feel if you have any feeling of a good vibration emerging. You can now relax. Thank you.